I was a reservist for about a year and a half. I would say that that is probably my first struggle and definitely was the hardest one for separating because I left this super duper tight-knit community that was very fast-paced, and I went to become a reservist, and I was like, okay, what do I do with my hands? This doesn't seem like the same thing. So I really struggled with that a little bit. But that was really the first hit of, oh man, I'm not this person anymore. I'm this other person now. And how do I rectify that with myself?
Welcome to Exit Buddy, Veteran Stories to Guide You. This podcast shines a light on real struggles and triumphs of veterans navigating life after the military.
In each episode, we dive into heartfelt stories of resilience, setbacks, a little humor, and growth as veterans transition and find new purpose in civilian life. And here for the journey, we're your host. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kathleen. If you're looking for inspiration, practical advice, or just a reminder that you're not alone in your transition, Exit Buddy is here to help you thrive beyond the uniform. Enjoy today's story from our next honorary Exit Buddy. Hello, everyone. This is Kathleen with just a little bit of a cold cough going on, so if you don't recognize me, that's why. And always my co-host, my co-pilot, and someone who I cannot get through the day without is Rachel. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic and hopefully not nearly as sniffly.
Well, I would like to welcome to the studio our new guest that we're so excited to have because she's part of a network of veterans that we have been having a great time talking to. So I'm excited to welcome Jacki Davenport, an Air Force veteran who spent over 20 years in intelligence and special operations before transitioning into the private sector. Jacki, thanks so much for joining us in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Well, Jacki, I think an important part to start the conversation is at the very beginning. So let's go back in time, maybe 20 years or so, and talk about what prompted you to join the Air Force and how did you end up in intelligence?
I am from East Texas, pretty far out in the country, and it was beautiful and it was gorgeous. And I had an amazing childhood, but then I decided at one point that I needed to change and I was ready for a challenge. So I decided I was going to check out the military, and I walked into the recruiter's office. So I walked into the Marine Corps office because what you'll notice about me probably throughout this conversation is I don't take no for an answer well. And if I'm going to do something, I'm going to just go big. So my conversation with the Marine Corps was pretty short when I realized that he was just trying to identify faults in me that were very obviously related to the fact that I was a young woman. I walked out pretty aggravated, and so then was kind of questioning what I might do instead. And then about a week and a half later, I'm in the fall of my senior year, Chem 2 AP class. So I'm sitting in the class and the Air Force ROTC recruiter comes in with the local staff sergeant and they're talking about recruiting for ROTC. It never really crossed my mind that I should talk to the ROTC recruiter because they were looking for, data scientists, engineers, right? It's the Air Force. So really technical degree sets. And so instead, when offered the chance to answer or ask a question rather, I ask very pointedly, so are you just talking to the men in the room or are you talking to everyone? To which the poor lieutenant says, and the staff sergeant was like, we can talk afterwards. And I said, okay, sure, So I do have a conversation with this staff sergeant who was a crew chief and doing his recruiting tour as a way probably to get off the flight line for a bit. And he said, why did you ask that question? And I said, well, and I told him my Marine Corps recruiting story. And he was like, well, that sounds really short-sighted and you should come into my office and talk to me. So I did. And I said, hey, look, I love working with my hands. I like working on cars. I am a huge tomboy. I've been rebuilding cars with my buddy. I want to work on airplanes if I join the Air Force. And his response was, no, I'm not signing you up for that. And I said, oh, okay. So here we are again, right? We're in the same spot, just a different conversation. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, I looked at your ASVAB score and I think you should do this other thing instead. And I said, okay, well, what is it? So he reads me like the vague blurb, of an Intel analyst. I don't even know if it was the career that I ended up in, to be perfectly honest, but it was some sort of flavor of intelligence analyst. And I said, okay, well, what does that mean? And he was like, I don't know, but it sounds really cool. And so he was really an honest broker. And I was like, it does sound really cool. So yeah, that was it. And then, that was in December. I joined the delayed enlistment program, got cleared through MEPS, did all that stuff on the weekends, and then graduated high school on Memorial Day weekend. And I was in boot camp on June the 1st.
Wow. I understand once you heard this sort of nebulous description of your career that you ended up having 8.5 years as part of a special missions unit. So let's talk about what you ended up doing, where you ended up living, and it sounded like you built your own community.
Absolutely. I mean, I was so lucky to have the experience that I have, even though you'll hear me all the time, like there's no such thing as luck, right? The Seneca quote of opportunity meets preparedness. But I did have a stroke of that too. I ended up, through my first couple of assignments, of being able to just say yes all the time. I didn't have a lot of restrictions. I didn't have children yet. So, hey, Hawaii, first assignment, I'll go. Hey, do you want to go to Germany? You got to go to Korea to get to Germany. Okay. You got to go to these deployments in Kosovo. You got to go to Japan. And I'm like, this sounds great. This is exactly why I joined the military, which is why I never got out at that first 4 years, right? And I kept re-enlisting. My mom's joke was, every time you say you're going to get out and then you don't. And I'm like, well, yeah, but there's always something else that I felt like I could do. And that's really where the special mission unit came up was, someone called me after a deployment to Iraq and they said, hey, we want you to come and work for us. And I was like, I don't know who you are. And they're like, well, can you just come and screen? And I'm like, sure. So I go through a couple of paperwork steps before I make it to the in-person screening. And I mean, it was weird and it was intense. I had run across some flavors of people like this before. So I had a again, like a very ubiquitous notion of what it might be. But I was also like, hey, this is going to be cool. Sounds cool. I don't know. Let's do it. And that's really what happened. So I make it out of the selection. There's 3 of us out of like 35 that get selected. A very small unit, a very tight-knit community. We were all sort of in the same age, sort of mid-level NCO range. And because of the way that they screened, we also had, the same frame of mind, right? How we approached problems, how we thought, those different kind of like soft skill pieces of your personality. It was awesome. Some of my very good friends that I now work with in the private sector were in this community. So it's really great. And we did build a really close-knit family. But it was crazy. It was, on a satellite phone in the middle of Kabul, like, hey, sir, do you want me to stay or go? Or I have 3 shirts, and he was like, nah, just stay. We'll send you some stuff, And so it ended up being a very challenging time, but also a really, really rewarding one too, just because of the impact that we were able to make in such a small team over those short deployments. And we had a lot of latitude. Our leadership really trusted us, and that was very evident in the way that we operated on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I understand you did something sort of interesting. You were a reservist, and then you went into active duty to, be part of a cyber unit. And, we talk about cybersecurity now, cyber hacker, all those things now. I spent 10 years in the community, and I still have my joys and my scars. But why did you go back to a cyber unit in active duty after being a reservist?
Yeah, so I think that starts with why I became a reservist, to be perfectly honest. So, I spent, the better part of 8 years. I would say I probably spent about half of that time deployed. humanity catches up with you and you're kind of like, wait, am I going to be like the cool aunt for the rest of my life? Or am I actually going to like have kids? And maybe I should meet someone instead of deploying every 4 months for 4 months. So I felt like I just needed to take a knee for a little bit. There was definitely some mental health stuff wrapped up in there as well. We started getting numb to some of the humanity aspects of what was going on down there. So I decided to take a knee and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go reservist. Again, I kind of jumped into that blindly. I didn't know when I became a reservist that I could come back on active duty. I didn't even know that was an option. I was a reservist for about a year and a half. I would say that is probably my first struggle and definitely was the hardest one for separating because I left this super duper tight knit community that was very fast paced and we had a real tangible impact, right? That you could feel. And I went to become a reservist and I was like, okay, what do I do with my hands? This doesn't seem like the same thing. So I really struggled with that a little bit. And thankfully, my husband, who I married in this reserve life, was understanding of that because I was probably the meanest to him out of everyone, to be honest. But that was really the first hit of, oh man, I'm not this person anymore. I'm this other person now. And how do I rectify that with myself? So I decided I wasn't going to go back to active duty until I had figured that out. And right around that time, right, opportunity comes up. I'm now prepared to do it. They're like, hey, we're standing up this offensive cyber unit in the reserve, and it's in San Antonio. And we lived in Texas. And I was like, ooh, San Antonio is better than where we live now. And I kind of looked at my husband. I'm like, he's still on active duty, right? So I'm like, can you get to San Antonio? And he's like, yeah, I think so. And so I'm like, all right, I'm doing it. And so, we ended up moving to San Antonio and I went back on active duty. And it was great because, building things is hard, but it's so rewarding, right? And so I found myself in that place several times with different mission sets, But so we got to build this entire unit, and I was running operations, and it was really great. And then they said, "Oh, hey, you're really promotable," and I was like, "What?" Because again, this is the girl that was like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll do 4 years and get out," and here I am. With the opportunity to be an E9, like a chief, right, in the Air Force. And I'm like, whoa, that's okay. Well, we'll see what happens. And then I got promoted. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm staying to do this gig. And it was great. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. Again, there was so much impact, but it wasn't mission impact anymore. It was people impact. And it just resonated so differently because by then I had little people that I had helped create. And so it was kind of crazy, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm this mama bear now instead of this intel targeting officer, which I used to be. And so it was a really nice split, and the way that it all came together. But then again, my own humans provided a jumping off point and that moment of reflection for me as well. When I decided to retire, I was chosen to continue on and be, promoted in a level of responsibility. But I really didn't have to sit back and say, okay, am I prepared every single day to either let all my airmen down or let my kids down? And I wasn't really prepared to make that decision, and I didn't want to be in that space. And so I retired 100% on my own terms at the time that I wanted to. And I think that made a big difference for the transition coming out.
Well, I have to tell you, it's a different type of intel officer when you have little people in your house, isn't it? It's a totally different transition.
Oh, yeah. I am no longer running technical targeting operations. I am running pure influence, like human intelligence operations around here.
Love it. You mentioned the retirement word and kind of that transition. So let's tap into that just a little bit. And so was there anything that you would attribute to the success of that transition? Any type of people or network or anything that you would say was paramount in really making that transition successful?
Yeah, absolutely. My network is the reason that I transitioned successfully, 100%, because I thought that I had done a lot of prep and turns out I didn't. So they were absolutely. And it wasn't just the people that I was stationed with in one assignment, right? It was multiple folks across deployments and assignments. And I think that just speaks to the quality of people that I had the pleasure of working with. But also, we had this mantra of we can all win. And so as soon as I, put my obligatory, I hit the button a year out, right? Social media post up, I got phone calls from numerous folks in my network who were like, oh, yes, you're getting out finally. Like, we want to hire you. You should do this. You should do that. And I was like, oh, whoa, I didn't expect this, but you guys are the best because I also have no plan, turns out. So absolutely, Rachel, it was 100% like my friends are the reason that I was successful through and through.
So I know, again, we kind of jumped about your jump in, like, why not? Let's give it a shot kind of gal out there. But there is a level of kind of mental preparedness that has to go into this because it is a big transition, kind of knowing what the day might look like to what in the heck am I supposed to do now? So tell me a little bit about kind of that mental prep that went into the transition.
It's funny because I had already realized, like, when I hit my special operations assignment, and we didn't wear uniforms, right? That nobody really cared what your rank was, what position you had. They really just cared about the value that you brought to the team. And then I realized when I became a reservist initially that no one cared about anything that you had done before, right? So those things were already apparent to me. And then what I think I really sat down and did was like, hey, I don't know what any of these jobs really mean. Right? Like, do you really know what a project manager means? I had no idea what, anything revenue generating meant, right? Because we just don't do that in uniform. So I just had to sit back and be really humble and remember that it didn't matter where I started. I was going to have to start at the bottom. I was going to have to get my reps and sets in. I was going to have to establish my own credibility, right? Maybe a little bit based off of how I operated in the military, maybe even a few things about what I did. But really, it was going to be about, like, how do I bring value in this different way? And being prepared to go from the person at the top of the food chain to the person who has to write down acronyms in every meeting and go look them up afterwards, right? And be willing to learn that and be willing to, hey, look, I have to be the one that says all my questions might sound dumb, but I have 20 of them, so who wants to answer them for me, right? But I think if you can't humble yourself, right, to that level, then you don't get to do the new best thing. And if you can't be in the trenches again, right, doing the work, then you don't learn all of those tiny idiosyncrasies, right, that we did learn in the military because we were in the trenches, because everybody started at the bottom. So yeah, I mean, it definitely was a mindset shift. But again, I think I was prepared for that because it had happened to me several times. Now, not on this scale, because I spoke an entirely different language. So I kind of had to learn that too. But yeah, I think the mindset was really critical in definitely starting out.
So you changed your mindset. You learned that acronyms don't transfer from the military to industry, because I find that always interesting, is that we all have acronyms and they're the same acronyms in different communities, but they mean different things. And that can always bite you in the behind. So talk to us about your current role and what drew you to that. And I mean, so many people are out there thinking about their transition, how they're going to be looking at their new opportunity. What drew you to this opportunity, and how did you navigate that for yourself?
Yeah. This again came from the network, right? At a nonprofit happy hour for special forces intelligence nonprofit, and over a beer, right? Like, man, I think I'm looking for something. Wait, are you really? You should come here. You remember that thing you did that one time? We're trying to do that, except better. So I was like, oh, okay. I had learned enough about business to where I felt like I could make good decisions as like kind of the director of a project as we're standing it up. And really like the mission set was and is, it's an extremely innovative group of people. It's an entire culture that's focused on like advancing intelligent systems so that they can operate in environments that continuously evolve. And it's bringing all those things, right? And it's not just like a piece of hardware or a piece of data. It is how do we take all these things and continuously scale them, right? And bring them together with technology, right? Autonomy, AI, machine learning. And how do we make that trusted, right? For the end user so they can reduce human cost, right? In the end game, and then effectively execute their mission. And I think, so I work at Fulcrum Autonomy because it does that. It sits at that intersection of all of those things combined with real world impact at the end state. And these are big problems. They are not easy. They are complex. They're dynamic. You need like big harebrained scheme, strategic thinking, right? And very small detailed execution simultaneously. And it's hard and it's going to continue being hard. But I firmly believe that there is nothing worth doing that isn't hard to do. And so I am excited. That's what drew me here. I'm like, man, could we build something that like we could have used, right? That would have made our jobs easier. We could have slept more than 3 hours a night. We could have been in a better space. We could have protected our mental health a little bit more, and reduced that burnout time. And something that we could trust and put our name on too. And so that's huge. And so it still feels like I'm working for the same folks that I used to work for as a chief. But now I get to move faster and I have a lot more resources at my disposal.
I love it. So going to ask for some parting knowledge here, Jacki. Is there any other advice that you would give to our listeners who are transitioning? Maybe they're at that 1 year or 6 month mark, but any just good, solid, good old Texas advice that can help them in that transition?
Two things. One is like kind of a mantra for me, which I'm sure, Kathleen, you've picked up on a little bit, which is don't self-select out of anything. If you can say yes, say yes. You can always leave later. This is the corporate space, right? You can be loyal, but do not be loyal to a fault and find the next thing that's good for you. I think the other piece, which kind of drove my transition, especially into my first job, was I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And most of those constraints and guardrails were wrapped around like preserving that life balance, right? Which is hard to preserve when you're in uniform, but it's not when you're in the private sector. And so that's what I started with. Like, hey, I want to be remote, right? Because my husband's going to start flying all the time because it's his turn. I want to be flexible because I have little humans and I want to spend time with them, right? I want to be able to learn. I need somewhere where I can grow. I don't want to be stagnant, right? Like whatever your 5, 6 things are, you need to go into any interview knowing what your no-goes are. So as soon as 1 or 2 of them are hit, you can say, you know what, this probably isn't for me. Because you want to be in a place, even if you're only there for a couple of years, where you're not miserable every day for a couple of years and you're learning something and you're feeling like you're progressing because you already know you started at the bottom again. So you can keep going. So I think those are 2 like big ones for me. But I will say lastly, and I will push this to the veteran community hard because I am of this mentality as well. It is okay to ask for help. It is okay to hit up your old friends, your colleagues, your network, and say, hey, how would you word this on a resume? Or like, you're doing this job, like, what does it look like? Do you think I would like it? I think you have to use that network. And you can't be ashamed, embarrassed, or feel like you shouldn't be asking, because we've all been through it and we know what it takes and we know how hard it can be. And so those are people that you have cultivated around you for a reason, and who are not going to say no to you, and hopefully also believe that we can all win.
Jacki, amazing, amazing advice. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you making the time to join us today. And I am so grateful to our mutual friend, Jamie Freeman, who introduced me to you and made sure that all of the superstars in her network can join us on the show. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks, ladies.
I really appreciated Jacki's perspective of just charging ahead, but she didn't take no for an answer. But I think the one thing that I loved, and I hope I'm not going to steal your thought.
You probably
here,
are,
Rachel.
Kathleen, because you're just rude and hateful like that.
I know, I do that. But networking. I mean, it's back to, she had a network, she worked on it, she's leaned on it, she leaned on it several times. I think that is sort of a very dominant theme that we've heard through many conversations. How about you, Rachel?
No, I think that was a fantastic one, and only partly of what I was going to say, Kathleen. But something else that really resonated that I think Jacki shared was kind of listening to your own Jiminy Cricket, if you will. I love that she recognized that she got to a point where humanity started to become not what she needed it to be, and she realized she needed something different, and took that moment to prioritize her own self, her own mental health, and do the right thing so that there was a longer game to play. And I just think that's a beautiful reminder, because oftentimes we can just get wrapped in that moment and think, I've got to just keep doing this and I'll just suck it up, buttercup. But realizing it's okay to prioritize yourself and your wants and your needs, I thought was just such great advice. So if you loved listening to Jacki and you've loved hearing all of these different stories, we would love for you to go out there and follow for more episodes. Be sure to subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter, and you'll find all the links in the show notes. So until next time, bye-bye, Exit Buddy.
Bye-bye.